Gone is my past. A second on its run is my present. Eternity is my future. Amen. Glage Ingwar is my name given to me by Al and Jessica, my parents. And the older I grew, the less perception of family care I got. Years of life were running endlessly, turning me more and more bored with the old-fashioned breeding my parents provided. Both of them wanted me to become a philosophy doctor, for it had been the best alternative of their 20s. It might be a good choice too when my late grandparents had been students. But as young as I was, I could see the end of scientific success. I knew how great amount of money was invested into university education, and then no philosophy doctor could earn enough to make up the expense. University were settling great and uncrossable hell debt. But reluctant to consider that, Mom and Dad wanted me to get settled in Oxford College of London for years. By that time I already planned to leave my hometown Liverpool, but the aim was different. Well, the BBC predicted coming crash of the Soviet Union, though one could hardly imagine this great empire would ever fall down. Nevertheless, it did in 1991, and then the world heard of Ukraine, the ex-Soviet Republic, ran to its independence with might and main, just as well as I was doing. By the end of the 20th century, it was obvious I wanted to live there, democratic and free country, not bound at all with conservatism and never taken a line of the least resistance. It was there where I wanted to live and find my other half. I started to learn Russian at home, having downloaded a course by Russians provided by London Mode Library website. The more time I spent on studies, the more irritated my parents grew. This scandal occurred when I was definitely clear, I was definitely sure, I wasn't ever going to Oxford. Dad shouted either was going to Oxford College or wasn't going to appear in his house anymore. I chose Oxford only when I knew they were providing student exchange with Kiev, Ukraine. And guess what? In 1999, I was in the group of students who went there. I liked the way the capital looked like. Golden church domes, old brick constructed houses, solemn central square called Maidan by locals, by glimmering sapphire water of the Dnipro. The exchange session was about to wind up when I had a strict decision to stay there in Ukraine. Learning Ukrainian map, I saw that Ukraine had much better places than Kiev was, and I wanted to find myself by the Black Sea shore. Hard to imagine, but only 500 kilometers separated me from my dream. To cover them, plane was an option, train was an option too, bus might be good as well, but they were too fast for my desire to see as much of Ukraine as possible. In Liverpool, we rode bicycles a lot. Me, my parents, my friends and neighbors, we were cycling along Liverpool, and it was great, not as tiresome as reviving. Cycling from Kiev to Odessa was like the best solution to travel and avoid my name mentioned at the ticket offices. I might be looked for first in Kiev, then in the UK, And so, with a little help from my friends in Kiev, I got a bicycle for myself. 4 days of travel across Ukrainian land deserve a separate novel, I think. Few lines could never be enough to describe the emotions that I brought. On arrival, sad news awaited me. I got a phone call, I think, from my friend, my former neighbor in Liverpool. He told that Mr. and Mrs. Ingwar had a death-bringing collision. They were driving in Death's car when a dog attacked. It will remain a great secret of eternity if they got scared of the car he was driving did. The dog's aggressive barking was followed by 3 vertical leaps the car made in the air before falling onto upper branches of a roadside oak. It took the local police an hour to excavate the car down and half of the day more to do the spatula work and separated the 2 stuck and breathless bodies from the car seats. My dad had always been impressed by Arthur Doyle's Hound of Baskervilles. The terrifying novel and legend seem to have done their worst. And now, with no bind to the kingdom, I was free to stay in Ukraine for as long as I wanted. Odessa, blessed by the sea, tenderly washing and caressing its shore, long as life itself, well, the city was a cozy home. I could found friends who introduced local humor to me. They also gave me a hand where I could find many girls of my age speaking English fluently. Frankly speaking, I needed 2 in 1. A nice girl to help me learn Russian and Ukrainian and become my bride after a while. I was targeted to the main university of the city. The building is pretty close to the seaside and the personalities I wanted inhabited the 4th floor. I think I reached the 3rd one when I saw her and our glances crossed. We stopped for a moment and a sort of flame burning I could feel inside. We spoke a little to each other. I know her name, and she spoke English in the way I could easily understand her. She hurried to her class, but we arranged going out after a while. That day we dined together, and the next day we also did. And then there was hardly a day when we failed to go out together. And besides romance, she tried me to help learning Russian and Ukrainian. Apparently she had a talented teacher, and pretty soon I could easily understand what native speakers talked around me. I decided to speak and think Russian and Ukrainian. Then I invented stories and helped me do my first translations from English into Russian and Ukrainian. I traveled all around Ukraine: Lviv, Poltava, Kiev, Vinnytsia, places where Ukrainian sounded more than in Odessa. Then a day came when I wanted to check if my language command was similar to that of the local people. I needed a local name to be accepted in Ukraine as a resident. So I needed a pen name because Glage Ingwar was not the best solution for the purpose. I prefer skipping the details on what damned hardship it would attain a Ukrainian passport with my Ukrainian name written in it, but still I have done it. I've done it. I remember to have paid a fine for, as I mentioned at police station, letting my passport get burned when my house was set on fire. But then I could introduce myself as Ukrainian, and I saw I had done it best. My Russian and Ukrainian speech never betrayed my being a foreigner. Though some people I spoke to guessed I wasn't a resident because I did not look like a mere Ukrainian. As for my part, I never wanted to reveal I was an Englishman because now I wanted to learn to speak Russian and Ukrainian as if they were my native languages. I felt I never need people to make the speech more comprehensive for a foreigner, or translate things into English for me. When you avoid it, that's the best way to learn how to speak a foreign language. A romance with Anne needed money to invest, and so began private English teachings for school students and adult learners. To keep my incognito, I played the role of a local English teacher, but I felt I wasn't teaching as much as I tried to learn Russian from my students. Meanwhile, I had to make them think and speak English, and I was teaching my students as a Ukrainian person had to, but it was obvious that Glage Ingwar might have done the objective better. With this mentioned, and revelation once got that local teachers were getting less salary than foreign ones, I decided to cut my incognito and to review who I really was by 2010. Moreover, Anne, who is my wife now, and I have a baby son these days, I want him to know the real truth by the time he gets older. So that's it. Gone is my past. A second on this run is my present. Eternity is my future.